Welcome, everyone. We're going to give everybody a moment to kind of filter in, and then we will start our presentation. So just one moment. All right. So hi, everyone. I'm Chris Campbell with the Food Institute. And on behalf of DMA, we'd like to thank you for joining us today to hear from the restaurant industry's top players regarding best practices for health and safety as we prepare for 2021. This webinar is brought to you by DMA and the Food Institute. DMA delivers customized distribution solutions to the best chain partners in the US, many of whom are in the virtual audience today. The Food Institute partners with DMA in several ways, and we both care deeply about supporting the restaurant industry at this critical time. The Food Institute would like you to visit our website at www.foodinstitute.com to learn more about our digital video content, weekly podcast, newsletters, membership, and more. As a reminder, a recording of this webinar will be shared to registrants following a processing period. We will also have a short Q&A session, time permitting, at the end of the webinar, so feel free to ask your questions in the chat. Now, to introduce our guests. Our panelists today will share industry data and best practices from their research and deep experience. Carrie Jaros serves as President and Chief Executive Officer at Gojo Industries, a leader in skincare and hygiene solutions and the makers of Purell. James H. Kennedy is the Director of P&G Professionals Restaurant Center of Excellence and is a well-known veteran of the industry. And our moderator and first presenter is Shohini Banerjee, Senior Vice President and Leader of Channel Performance in the US West region with Ipsos. And with no further ado, I'll pass the microphone to Shohini, so please take it away.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Shohini Banerjee. As Chris mentioned, I work at Ipsos. I serve as a Senior Vice President in the Channel Performance Group. Part of the role that I play at Ipsos in our group is we work with a lot of clients across the restaurant, grocery, and a plethora of other industries, working with clients to help them measure and improve their performance across various channels, including online and in-store. As part of 2020, our group conducted several syndicated studies, one of which was around health and safety, and we tried to understand what are the measures with respect to health and safety that different industries must take in order to stay open and stay profitable in this chaotic year. And one of those focus areas was the food and beverage industry and restaurants in specific, and I'll be discussing some of those results with you today. So as I mentioned, as part of our syndicated offering, as the economy was opening up after the first round of closures back in April and May of 2020, we asked ourselves, what are the key health and safety measures brands can take to stay open and stay profitable? What does that path to reopening look like? And while we reopened and the economy kind of thrived for a few months, we're kind of going back into shutdowns, and therefore this question becomes relevant again as all of our different brands and sectors try to reopen once the surge is over. What are the key things that they'll need to focus on is a moot point, and that's something that we'll be discussing. So specifically, we'll be answering three questions today. How are consumer attitudes towards health and safety evolving? What are the top drivers of consumers returning specifically to restaurants? And what are the top performing industries and brands doing to keep consumers safe? We'll be looking at specific examples and pictures that we collected as part of our research. So just to set the stage, health and safety is still relevant and top of mind. This data is back from October of 2020, but I think these stats are still relevant. 2 in 5 people globally do not see life returning to normal for at least another year. 4 in 5 Americans think that there will be a second wave of COVID-19, which there already is, as we all know. And 1 in 3 Americans are unlikely to take the vaccine as soon as one is available. So, we all talk about the vaccine kind of being this proverbial sort of solution to all our problems, but by the time it gets rolled out and by the time everybody gets vaccinated, it'll be a while. So, there is the sentiment of health and safety being a priority, being a concern, and, this need to kind of be restricted in the way we operate. And yet 52% Americans believe that we should restart the economy and allow businesses to open and operate as they choose. So there is this dichotomy of this need to kind of stay safe and stay secluded, but this need for the economy to reopen and for businesses to operate. So the only way to kind of balance that dichotomy is to be very clear in terms of the health and safety measures that need to be taken on a day-to-day basis to keep all of us safe. Now, consumers are eager for the restrictions to end, but how quickly they will return to pre-COVID levels depends on the sector. So at Ipsos, we looked at all of these industries and conducted consumer research. And as you can see, restaurant and bars are just behind grocery and driving my personal vehicle in terms of returning of consumers wanting to return to a sense of normalcy as soon as restrictions are lifted. So, if you're a restaurant operator, the key here is that things will get back to normal. And it's a question of kind of navigating the second reopening. And as long as you can kind of navigate this reopening successfully by taking the right measures, hopefully things will get back to some sense of normalcy sometime later in 2021. So as I mentioned at Ipsos, we conducted this syndicated study. It's called the Consumer Health and Safety Index. You can Google it. There's a lot of press coverage about it. But essentially, it was a syndicated study that we conducted 2 waves of, one in the April-May timeframe and the second in the August-September timeframe. And as part of this, what we wanted to do was 2 things. One, we wanted to measure consumer sentiment. So we conducted consumer research to analyze health and safety attributes, which are most important to consumers. And we identified drivers of return and return of consumers returning to stores and consumers trusting brands. For each of these waves, we polled 2,000 Americans, and we'll be sharing some of that data and research with you in a moment. And then once those drivers were identified, we actually have a panel of mystery shoppers here in the US. And we essentially deployed mystery shoppers to actually go visit various in-store establishments, including restaurants, to actually understand how various stores and restaurants were actually implementing the health and safety measures that were identified as part of our consumer research. And based on that, we essentially created an index, and we identified the top performing brands that were doing a really good job of implementing the health and safety measures that were most important to consumers. So with the help of the study, if you were to sort of buy into the study, brands would be able to measure their own performance, benchmark their own performance against industry, and take action to actually improve their performance on health and safety. So just in terms of scope of the study, as I mentioned, the first wave was actually in the May to June timeframe. We included 7 industries, including food and beverage. There were about 10 restaurant brands included, including McDonald's, Chipotle, Taco Bell, KFC, Qdoba, all the ones that you see at the top of the screen. And in the second wave, we continued to include food and beverage, and we switched over some of the brands from wave 1, but again, we had a pretty good coverage across various restaurant chains in the US. For each of these brands, we conducted 125 mystery shops. So essentially for each brand received 125 shoppers that visited their on-premise establishments and actually reported back on the health and safety measures that were observed. And these 125 locations were dispersed through the geography of the country. So coming back to some of the questions we're trying to answer, how are consumer attitudes towards health and safety evolving? So in our research, what we found was that consumer shopping frequency is rising, but continues to be focused at essential retailers. It shouldn't be a surprise here, but essentially grocery, big box stores, and gas stations were the 3 kind of industries that had the maximum visitation in terms of consumers actually going to these establishments. Food and beverage, so fast food restaurants, coffee shops, quick service restaurants were lower down on that scale, especially because a lot of the offerings have pivoted to online e-commerce pickup delivery options. But even so, between the two waves of the study, we did observe an uptick in terms of the traffic to restaurants. And the other thing that we observed was generally retailers who implement health and safety protocols are more trusted by consumers. So we asked our consumers about the implementation of health and safety measures that they had observed in sort of their past visits to stores, and also their level of trust, and the two lined up. Essentially, the industries which were perceived to be implementing more health and safety measures also had a higher perception of trust, and vice versa. And as you can see, the restaurants, fast food, quick service, and coffee shops, again, are kind of in the middle of the stack. Not the best, but not the worst either in terms of implementation and trust. What was most surprising to us was we observed that health and safety protocols remain 4 times more important than customer service. Being a customer experience professional, I've been in this field for 10 plus years now. This was a very interesting finding. Customer service usually is kind of, the main differentiator, but at this time, health and safety is actually 4 times more important, and hence the need for brands across the board to really get health and safety measures right, so that you can tide over this period and kind of come back strong once the pandemic is over. 27% Americans stated that they would pay at least 10% more for products at stores that are doing a superior job with health and safety. 61% Americans will stop shopping at a retailer if they knew the retailer wasn't taking health and safety seriously. So the stakes are high, and again, highlighting the importance of making sure that you have health and safety measures in your store implemented. So coming to the second question, what are the top drivers of consumers returning to restaurants specifically? So as part of our study, we, as I mentioned, we sent our shoppers to various locations. And essentially what we had them measure was all of the 25 attributes that you see on the screen, examples being 6-foot distancing markers, availability of masks, and hand sanitizer, employees actually adhering to 6-foot distancing, etc. So as part of our research, we essentially conducted a driver analysis and identified the top 5 drivers of return to restaurants and top 5 drivers of trust for restaurants. So these are, so in terms of drivers of return, so this is what are the top things that restaurants can do to convince customers to come back to their stores. And essentially employee safety equipment provided by the employer, store entrance opening automatically. Now, this doesn't mean that all restaurants should now go ahead and install automatic doors at on your premises. It simply means that consumers don't want to touch anything when they enter the store. So maybe keeping the door open, or have an employee open the door for customers when they walk in. That's a measure that would drive consumers to feel safe and as a result return to your stores. Employees wearing masks or face covering, social distancing signage at the entrance, social distancing markers present inside. So these were identified as the top drivers of return. On the other hand, we also measured the top drivers of trust. And as you can see, hand sanitizer available at the entrance, employees visibly wiping down the store. So these are some of the attributes that actually lead consumers to trust your brand. And one thing you'll notice that employee safety equipment provided by the employer is actually both a driver of return as well as trust. So what it means is that consumers want to know that these health and safety measures are being driven from a company perspective, from corporate, right? It's a brand-wide initiative. It's something that the company is taking seriously to keep not just consumers, but customers, but also employees safe. So these are some examples of the top key things that if you're a restaurant owner or operator, that you need to kind of keep in mind in order to implement health and safety measures. Coming to the last section, what are the top performing industries and brands? And what are they doing to keep consumers safe? So as I mentioned, we created an index and identified the top performing brands that that were observed to be taking health and safety seriously. And first at the industry level, grocery and big box were the two sectors that essentially topped our index in terms of implementing health and safety measures across both the waves. Food and beverage came in at the fourth spot in both ways. So again, not the best, not the worst either, somewhere in the middle. We also had shoppers observe health and safety measures both outside at the exterior of stores as well as interior. Restaurants did not do well on the exterior. So in terms of taking measures outside the store, in terms of signage or markers, restaurants did not do well in that space, but when it came to measures inside the store, that's where kind of the restaurant industry stepped up and did almost as well as grocery and big box stores. The one thing that we did notice with hand sanitizer presence was actually surprisingly low across the board, across various brands, across various sectors. And to us, that was surprising because, placing a bottle of hand sanitizer is you would imagine, a pretty simple exercise. But our shoppers did not observe a lot of hand sanitizers being placed across various brands and stores. So coming to the top performing brands, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Costco were sort of the three brands in terms of grocery and big box that kind of outperformed other brands in terms of health and safety measures as measured by our index. Wells Fargo was, so we included financial institutions on the second wave, and Wells Fargo came up tops. And Panda Express actually emerged as the top performing brand, specifically in the second wave. Chipotle was the top performing brand in the first wave, and Panda Express was identified as the top one in the second. So very quickly, I'll kind of I'll leave you with a couple of visuals of what our shoppers actually observed in store. So what you see here is Whole Foods. So if you go to any Whole Foods store close to your home, wherever you are, you will notice that Whole Foods, in terms of implementing health and safety signage and measures, they're extremely consistent. So you'll see the sign that you see on the left-hand side picture, you'll see it at the entrance of every Whole Foods store in the country. 100% of the employees at Whole Foods were seen wearing masks, and there was hand sanitizer spread across various parts of the store, etc. Whole Foods actually emerged as the overall top performing brand across both waves of our study, and these are some of the reasons why. Now, coming back to the restaurant industry, as I had mentioned, Panda Express emerged as a leader in the second wave of our study. And again, very similar to Whole Foods, you'll see that they have a very concerted effort in terms of posting signage, in terms of the presence of signage, markers, employees wearing masks. All of this were pretty high in terms of performance for Panda Express. This little image that you see in the middle of the health and safety measures that the brand has taken. You'll see this image on their website, you'll see it in the press, you'll see it in all the stores. So again, these are a few reasons why Panda Express was evaluated to be a top performing restaurant chain in the second wave. Ultimately, the common theme that we observed across all our top performers was that it's all about consistency and visibility. So getting health and safety right is not rocket science. It's not super complicated. All you need to do is make sure that whatever measures you're taking them consistently across all the stores in your portfolio, and that you're actually being visible about it. So, if you're taking a measure, make sure that you let your customers know that you're doing it by posting signs, by running a PR marketing campaign. It really is, it makes a difference in terms of how much the consumer actually trusts your brand, and it will impact their future behavior of return to your brand. So on that note, I will conclude my presentation. If you want to know more about the Health and Safety Index, please do write into us at us_channelperformance@ipsos.com. And with that, I will transition to James Kennedy, my co-panelist, who will be talking about P&G. He's from P&G Professionals, and will be talking about P&G's Clean Plus experience with operators.
Hey, thanks, Shohini. And I'm James Kennedy, and I'm proud to lead Procter & Gamble's Restaurant Center of Excellence and director of our national accounts team. And really thrilled to participate, all of us at P&G are, and work with DMA as we continue to, understand and share solutions to help our industry, continue to recover from, this challenging pandemic. I also want to share that I'm thrilled to be on the panel with both Shohini and Carrie, and look forward to learning from their expertise, and obviously already have with Shohini. And these webinars have been great. Following folks like Tom Bonet and Larry Oberfeld from IFMA and Jerry Fernandez from Multicultural Alliance, as well as my favorite was the Taco Tuesday with Pat and Jim from Taco John. So this has been great. And again, as the slide shows, we've been at this business for a while. We've been supporting the industry for over 100 years with our trusted brands and solutions, and want to continue to be seen as, as part of the solution as we all come together to, to help this industry, and excited to be here. So going to this next slide, so I was asked by DMA, I'm thrilled to kind of share, what we've been able to achieve with some of operators, including Dunkin', but also many others, as we help them develop plans and programs that would really ensure that their guests felt comfortable coming back and dining with them. And we've done this, again, in other industries as well. Most recently with our Microban product, we've partnered with Best Western on their Clean Stay program. So again, whatever we can do, we want to continue to support. And in terms of his background with Dunkin', we've been working with them for over 12 years with their best-in-class food safety team, their operations, supply chain, as well as the NDCP, which is their franchisee own co-op, and having those multi-functional relationships really enabled us to kind of develop the program we did to ensure that we could, they could delight the consumers and demonstrate what they've been doing. And again, this isn't the first time that we've done this with Dunkin'. We've worked with them on another food safety initiatives over the years, and every October 15th is, I'm sure Carrie knows, it's National Hand Washing Day. So just another example to continue to reinforce and motivate and remind folks the importance of clean restaurants, washing hands, and for this background, that's why it really enabled us to move forward the manner in which we did. In this Clean Plus experience, all of us were grappling with the challenges right after the COVID impact really hit hard in March. We saw stay-at-home orders executed, a lot of local and state governments saying close dining rooms, and it was just a challenge that I know everybody in the industry had. All the supply chain folks, all the things you were buying for the first time ever. I know it was tough for all of us, but our mutual goal was to really understand what do consumers want and expect from operators. What's important to them, not only in terms of thorough cleaning and some cues, but also we conducted some separate but consistent research with Procter & Gamble's CMK, which is our consumer and market knowledge research, but other research as well, to not only understand what they wanted, but also how to best convey the health and safety measures that we were doing to ensure and let people know we're taking all the precautions, whether it's CDC, what the NRA and others advised operators to do, because again, it was so important that we keep the doors open and be there as a safety place for the consumers. So I'm not going to obviously share the specific Dunkin' research, but this is some P&G research, and I saw one question from Lynn asking about, Ipsos research. Was that just QSR? But what we did with P&G, we had 924 heavy users, and this is dining, whether it was full service or QSR limited service, as to, okay, what's most important to you? And as you can see, 70% of diners really expected more thorough and frequent cleaning, and they felt that it was extremely important to do so. And consistent with Shohini's research that she just shared, safety measures, the social distancing, masks, gloves of handling food, all of those things that the restaurants needed to be doing were consistent with what people felt based on, all the information coming their way. And hey, so was cleanliness important? Absolutely. I mean, 70% of diners say that cleanliness is really super important. It's always been up there at the top, but now with COVID, it jumped to number 2, just right behind the quality and the taste of the food. So it's always been important up there, but in terms of value, menu selection, and even order accuracy of drive-thrus, those kind of fell down a little bit just because of the importance that everybody had to ensure that their restaurant was operating in a safe manner, and as well as they could do for their guests and customers. And again, we also had research on what's most important, and Shohini hit that too. It's those high touch areas, it's tables and chairs and doors. And you can see the information as well, the pleasant smell or lack thereof, all of those cues to signal that a restaurant had been properly cleaned. The final slide that I'll show you from P&G research was that 58% of diners just said they'd be more likely to pick a restaurant if they knew the brand of cleaning products was something they were familiar with and trusted. And again, this information also kind of was woven into the communication that we developed, with Dunkin' and others. And so this is what we came up. You've got to get the research. After you get the research, you have to glean the insights and then put together, a program, a plan to implement and roll the program out. And again, I'm not going to, share anything proprietary. I'll just share, with Dunkin' that what's been seen on their website, in their restaurants, and then in the press release, which they, put out, just to kind of reinforce the importance of cleaning and what they're doing, the steps that they're taking, the same thing that Shohini just mentioned. And in that press release, it wasn't just the Clean Plus, but it was also the steps they were doing, such as the social distancing decals on the floor, the fact that their employees are wearing masks, that they installed plexiglass. Shohini, one thing, I just hope all the supply chain people don't think they need to go out now and buy automatic doors. That would be tough in our industry, and they were buying all of these items, and it really made a difference. So I'll just, close with a couple of slides. Here's a restroom, with the Clean Plus decal. Just reminding folks, hey, this is what we're doing to disinfect this restroom, and it's pretty clean. That's one that I'm proud of. And then the final slide, some of those folks that may have seen this that that I'm linked in with, and shout out to Pam, who's on my team, manages the Dunkin' business. She sent me this mask, months ago, and certainly I wear it with Dunkin'. But in all seriousness, it was just important for restaurants, for really all of us to recognize, hey, we need to do everything we can that the research has proven. We need to be a force for good at the restaurant industry. We need to be a cornerstone for the communities. And so I think that, what I've seen in our industry has been terrific. We've been happy to, participate. And in terms of, has this worked? Yeah, the GMs, the franchisees I've spoken to, they're proud of the steps that they've taken, as well as how they've communicated all they're doing to ensure the safety and well-being of their guests, not only their guests, but also their employees and crew, which also, had some, trepidation about working in this place safe. And the final point that I'll add is, I think it was effective, in a really challenging third quarter of JAS, with, store closures and scaled down operations. Dunkin' was able to deliver a positive same-store sales in both their Dunkin' business and their Baskin-Robbins. So, again, we appreciated the opportunity to partner with them and some others, and I hope this information has been helpful. So, with that, I will turn it over to Gary Jaros with Gojo. Thank you.
Thanks, James. And I'll echo James and Shohini. I'm so happy to be here today with all of you. I know everybody who's listening in has had quite a year, and the year to come is probably, well, it'll be easier in some ways. It's going to be harder in other ways. So I'm happy we have a moment together to talk about that and to, share a little bit about what we're seeing and maybe share some tips and tricks that can be helpful. And also just offer our moral support as you all continue through this journey. So first of all, just talk a little bit about who we are. We always, sorry, I'm getting used to this this interface. We always start with our Gojo purpose, which is saving lives and making life better through well-being solutions. If you ask any Gojo team member anywhere in the world, they would tell you this first and foremost. And I think that comes partly from being a 75-year-old third-generation family business. Today, we are still that way. And, there are sort of, in addition to having a really strong purpose and being this third-generation family enterprise, we also are really proud of being science-based. And that's not just about how we formulate our products, which I'll talk about later, but it's also really about how we think about how humans interact with the topics that we relate on. So, it's not just about having the best ingredients and the right products and showcasing those out in your facilities, but it's about creating an interaction with humans that leaves people feeling really great, not just at the functional level, like they did the thing with the product or you did the thing with the product that you were supposed to do, and it took care of business, but there are social and emotional benefits to interacting with these products too. And so we think about all of those things, and that'll come through as we talk a little bit about how we're seeing both the challenges and opportunities that are in front of all of us. So as I said at the beginning, I recognize that, this pandemic has been hard on all of us, but for operators and distributors, man, are there just so many more challenges and things that you need to be worrying about than before. I was sort of preparing for today and reading through the updated guidelines that are being issued to all of you out there. And, the list just go page after page after page. And I think about trying to run, a restaurant chain or a store chain and looking at these pages and pages and pages of either recommendations or requirements. And it's a lot. And trying to balance compliance with all of those. You're also trying to make sure that the guest experience is still outstanding. It's the thing that you built your businesses on. And so how do you make sure that that guest experience is still winning? And then cleanliness, which we'll talk a lot about. And the three of these things can go together really, really well, and they can also compete against each other. From Shohini's research that Ipsos did, I think, 3 points really stood out to us as we were sort of thinking about this topic for today. The first is that hand sanitizer availability is a top driver of trust. It's a really simple point. So making hand sanitizer available and visibly available is really important. Hand sanitizer availability is inconsistent. So, James, I think Shohini and James both said, this should be so easy. Like, why is this hard? Sticking out a bottle of hand sanitizer should be one of the easiest interventions when you look at pages and pages and pages of recommendations, and yet people aren't doing it. So why? And then the best performers are they're not just putting out the sanitizer, they're providing visible premium solutions that signal so much more. So they're really getting not just at that functional need, but also at that social and emotional need. And I have a picture there of a local grocer in our Akron area, Mustard Seed, who's doing a really nice job of that. So when we think about the right way to do this, we think about, there's this sort of terminology that's been thrown around that's the idea of hygiene theater. And I don't like that term because it suggests that it's theater, it's not real. But I think there's something in it that we all have to pay really close attention to. So when we're out there struggling with these challenges and implementing a program of cleanliness, and I think James touched on this too in their Dunkin' program, it's not just about what you do, and what you do is, what products you're providing, how your team members are using them, how you're setting up your processes to make sure that everything's getting replenished. So all that's really important. And there is a theater element to this. There's an element of really showing your guests all that work, showing them that you're making choices that are really premium choices that the brands that you're choosing are brands that they trust, who use high quality ingredients and have both safety and efficacy. And then there's something about showing off your team members actually using those products in the right ways at the right moments. So all of that comes together. So maybe instead of it being theater, it's more like hygiene orchestra, right? It's sort of all of these things coming together in a moment when your guest is in your facility, and sort of seeing that you really are choosing the right products from the right brands, and you're using them in the right ways and in the right places. And I'll just pick one little case study of my own for a second. So, Chipotle, I think is, Shohini mentioned that they were #1 in wave 1. What's exciting for us is not just that they performed well, but that this was on the back of them doing this work long, long before the pandemic. So, we have been working together, really looking at how to establish a reputation of cleanliness and trust, and really have the guests come in and just be overwhelmed with attention to cleanliness, attention to hygiene. And so, they've done a number of things, not just on the surfaces side, on the skincare side with us, but also on the surfaces side, really making sure that high touch point disinfection is getting done in a consistent way with products that are incredibly efficacious and safe, that can be sprayed right around guests and not cause issues. With the Purell logo, big and bright and bold, and a ready-to-use product that's just readily available. And I think about the difference between that kind of behavior and a red bucket and a off-color rag. And they were making those changes before the pandemic. And so as this year unfolded, they were really ready to welcome their guests in a really different way than a lot of establishments who are just sort of waking up to this need. We have a couple stats on here that I love, because again, they too were from before the pandemic. So before this, 89% of people who were surveyed in food service establishments said that seeing Purell products in that establishment signaled that restaurant had a concern about health and wellness. So before the pandemic, 89% of people saw that brand and said, okay, these are people who care about me. They care about health and wellness. And 94% of the employees who work in that place had a similar reaction. They said, my employer cares about my health and well-being. That was before the pandemic. We'll go back and do this research, afterward, but there's not a lot of room for those numbers to go up. So people already felt that way. We just didn't have the fire lit under us to respond necessarily, and we do now. So working, around this topic of sort of the right product, there's so much for you guys to worry about as you're going through these checklists. How do you make sure you're picking products that are right for you? You've got to think about, and this is not just in skincare, it's in surfaces, it's in all of your cleaning and disinfecting. You need to think about the combination of safe, effective, and good for you. And good for you for us really means the experience. So when I use this product, I walk away feeling like I did something good for myself. When I see a team member using the product, I walk away saying they're doing something that's good for me. So we think a lot about this combination of safety and efficacy. And I actually believe that while today is all about efficacy, today you talk to people and it's all about efficacy, over the next 12 to 18 months, safety is going to reemerge as a really, really critical area for us to talk about, because people are going to get tired of all of this disinfecting and sanitizing like they always do. And they're going to want to make sure that these products that they're now living with side by side, day by day, every minute, that they need, and they recognize they need them, they're going to want to make sure that those products are really safe, not just keeping them safe from outside threat, but that they're safe products made with high quality ingredients that over the long run are going to be safe to sort of coexist with. And so we're just as focused on safety as we ever have been, even though it's the moment of efficacy. And it's also about continuing to really push the envelope on innovation. So I think we'll do that on the efficacy front naturally. You can see there VF Plus, which is a hand sanitizer that we introduced, fortunately, right before the pandemic. That is really our broadest spectrum. It's a maximum strength, broad spectrum efficacy hand sanitizer that was designed for these kinds of compliance environments. It's a special product. And then our surface spray and our surface wipes, and even that little dispenser that's there, that's a really convenient small format dispenser that can be placed in all the right places in a food service establishment. It's great on a hostess stand, if you're doing takeout. So we're really thinking about how to make sure that the formulations and the engineering and the human factors of our products, make them frictionless to use and really easy to put in place highly visibly so that you're getting credit for all the work that you're doing. So I think I'm going to keep moving so that we make sure that we make up time for the benefit of being third as I get to be the pace car. I think we've talked a little bit about how well Chipotle has done with this. I'm proud too to see other customers like Panda Express and Whole Foods with whom we put together really comprehensive programs. And again, also right before this. And I'll just end, talking a little bit about next year. So, as you all head into next year and you're thinking about, looking at that huge long list, where are the places to focus? I'll just pick out a couple. So the first is really around permanent solutions. There's this concept of kind of hardening an asset, going from your temporary quick put up to really a permanent asset. And I think that that's so true when it comes to both hygiene programs, but also products. So, many of you out there have sort of jumped to it and put all kinds of temporary solutions in place. That was amazing and absolutely had to happen, right, to get to where you are today. As you look into next year, really assessing how that's working. What have you learned about the products themselves? What have you learned about placement? What's changed in your business from when you pulled together those temporary solutions? And how do you come up with really a permanent plan, or at least call it a 12 to 18 month plan for how these solutions are going to fit into your facility? I'll just pick an example. Many locations have now created a window for takeout. Maybe they've even knocked out a wall and they have a window that goes to the outside world to administer takeout. Thinking about how to outfit that space that is that place of interaction between your guests and your team members in a way that really doesn't feel sort of slapped together, that feels more permanent, where hygiene is really showcased as a centerpiece of that interaction between your employee and someone who's visiting you. That's a great opportunity, a great sort of boundary place to really showcase your commitment. Another great example is, through your takeout programs, thinking about doing things like putting a Purell wipe, for example, in the bag. All these little opportunities where you've done things temporarily that might have real permanent value, and you can show a commitment in a different way when you really harden that program. The other ones I'll hit here just briefly are sort of at the bottom. You should continue to demand from us, and I know James would nod too, especially with his years and years of experience here. You should demand from us that we support you, that we are reading these documents at your side, that we are helping you translate them. If there are, jobs in your facility that you need us to be doing for you with our products and our solutions, you should be screaming them from the rooftops. We want to help. We care about you deeply. We care about your guests. And we want to continue to be really agile and to, the little dispenser we showed, we basically launched that in 3 months. So we'll continue to show that kind of agility if you keep coming to us with the jobs that you need us to do on your behalf with your customers. And I know your distributor partners want to do the same thing. And so we just all have to keep communicating and talking to each other and really working as a team to get through this time. So I'll pause there and turn it back over for the Q&A portion.
Great. Thanks, Carrie, and thanks, James. That was a good session. We do have a few.
I just said likewise.
Right. But we do have a few questions, so maybe we can, and we have about 15 minutes. So why don't we start with a few questions? Carrie, I'll start with you. You talked about the need, to kind of scream out loud from rooftops in terms of, in terms of needing help and kind of moving forward on this topic. I guess the question is, as we roll into 2021, is there anything that restaurant brands should be doing differently in 2021, especially in the first half of 2021 versus the second half? Because, hopefully we will have a vaccine come through and get distributed in the first half, and the second half will probably kind of, start looking somewhat normal, compared to what we had in the past. So yeah, any words of advice in terms of how to think about 2021 and those two halves of the year?
Yeah, so I'll just echo this idea of hardening your assets, but I'll take a different turn on it. So, the first half of the year, I think we all anticipate that traffic counts will continue to still be recovering. And so that's a great time to make these upgrades. You will not have time, hopefully, we all have our fingers crossed, in the second half as traffic starts to really climb again, things will get really, really busy in these locations. And so you won't have time to deal with the friction that temporary solutions cause you, whether it's because you're going out to, a wholesale club and buying sanitizer in giant cases, whatever you're doing that you have time to do today because your guest counts are down and you've got, man hours to do today in your store because they aren't waiting tables or they're not doing other things like that, those hours are going to go away. And the requirements are going to not only be all the things that we've had to do so quickly this year, but then all of those guests coming back. So as I think about the second half, how do you prepare your facility for high traffic and this new reality around clean and around hygiene?
Yeah, that's an interesting take. And I guess, James, what's your perspective on this same question?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We expect to see some easing of, COVID-19 restaurant restrictions, just essentially infection control practices around, the U.S. as the number of illnesses kind of go down. And also, as people, as you said, get more vaccinated and we move out of the respiratory virus season. So we do see folks expecting to come back, but I think that many practices that we see right now, they're going to be expected to continue, and many local regulations will require continued mask wearing. And again, the patrons, the guests are going to expect to see that continued cleaning in the high touch surface areas, the importance of hand hygiene, having hand sanitizer readily available is going to be critical. I think the other important thing is that you also have to help our employees answer the why, because I think there's just going to be a continued focus on people observing in their restaurant. So make sure that the operators share with your staff, make sure that the staff knows why they're doing what they're doing, because some people may say, why are you cleaning that? What are you using? Tell me about that brand. So it's important to continue to educate and partner with, as Carrie said, your supplier, lean on us. To help you with training and everything else to support your operations.
Yeah, and that's a really important point, and also from an employee motivation and morale perspective, right? They need to know the why, why it's important to them, to the customers, to the business, in order to be able to sort of continue doing it on a day-to-day basis. It's interesting also because in some of our research, we've found that behaviors that continue to stick over the long term are the ones that are low barrier and high return. So anything that's easy to do and that actually has a stated benefit is a behavior that will stick. And so stating the benefit and stating the why and being on the same page on the why, I think it's a very important factor in being able to propagate and sustain a certain behavior. So James, we talked about Panda earlier in the session, and I understand that P&G cleaning program is actually being used by Panda. I was curious to get your perspective on, on what Panda is doing, and if you can add any sort of
I'll add a little bit. I won't get in exactly, kind of what Panda is doing, but we're obviously incredibly proud to be their, cleaning partner. But no, their focus on cleaning, it's just part of their culture. We've had some terrific founder-led concepts in our industry over the years, and certainly the Churns, I think, are at the top with what they expect. They lead by example, and cleanliness, safety, caring for the employees. This is just what they do, and to be recognized as the leader in safety. This didn't begin 10 months ago, 12 months ago. It's just been, part of their culture for so long, such as caring for the employees and doing the right thing and ensuring the support center gives the resources to the GMs and all of their, employees. what's also a lot of people may not know is in 2017, Panda Express was awarded the coveted, or actually the Panda Restaurant Group was awarded the Black Pearl Award by the IFAAFP, which is the International Association for Food Protection. And, that was just because of their proven demonstration and commitment to, food safety and proper practices. And I'll tell you, if your purpose and mission is inspiring better lives and caring for employees, caring for your guests, making it safe, that's just part of your DNA.
Right. And on that note, James, like what is the one thing you think brands and restaurants should avoid doing in 2021?
Well, I certainly you can't let your guard down, right? I think we've made so much strides in recognizing the importance of cleaning. So, it's just imperative that, we continue to improve. We continue to build. Again, we all hope that 21 is going to see a resurgence in our industry. But there's a heightened awareness and alert of the consumers. And, just as we know that people return to a restaurant and don't return to a restaurant because of cleaning and the value they receive or anything else, if they have a bad experience or don't see proper cleaning or have some questions about it, it's going to be tough. So don't let your guard down. Keep the focus on cleaning. Continue to stay focused on those high-touch surfaces like doors and tables and chairs, and letting people know that you're doing the extra mile to ensure a great guest and safe experience.
Got it. I see an interesting question from the audience, and it basically says, it refers to the 1918 Spanish flu that killed about 700,000 Americans, twice the current death rate. But by summer of 1920s, it was gone, and Americans entered the roaring 20s. So why then should restaurants invest in expensive, long-term, permanent COVID prevention? Shouldn't you advise owners to only add temporary, less costly measures until we get through this? So I thought this was an interesting question. I have a take on this. Maybe I can start, and Carrie, I'd love to go to you and then to James. But my take on this is that, number one, I think this is more about like what you stand for as a brand and as an entity, right? So cleaning is not just about cleaning for consumers, it's also caring about your employees and their health, their safety, and it really is about like what you stand for. And these measures don't have to be, at least they don't have to be super expensive all the time, right? So for instance, as I mentioned, it's not about installing automatic doors at your restaurant all of a sudden. It's really about understanding the sentiment that customers don't want to touch anything that when they're entering the restaurant, and maybe have the door open for them, keep it open, or have an employee open it for them. So it's about coming up with innovative solutions to a problem that does exist. And end of the day, it really I think is about the sentiment of whether or not you're caring for your employees and customers. And based on that, I think customers are constantly evaluating you versus competition, and it would ultimately lead to the brand loyalty, and it really is about creating good experiences that people would remember and kind of come back to as your business grows and thrives in 2021. I have a local place that we do delivery and takeout at, and I just know that owner cares deeply about the safety of not just us but also her employees, and that has a feel good to it, which as soon as things open up, we would be the first people to go dine into that restaurant. So at least that's my take. Carrie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'll say two things. I think the first thing is for good reason. These leading chains that you're seeing today in the research started this work way before the pandemic, and they knew that issues like norovirus are very, very real. They have nothing to do with this pandemic. But guess what? Doing high touch point disinfection and good hand hygiene not only help you right now, but they're going to prevent the really reputational, disastrous kinds of issues that we see all over the place outside of pandemic times. And I am grateful as a consumer that the industry has really woken up to these issues and is getting serious, really thinking about these very simple ways to really protect the health and well-being of guests and also of team members. So that's one. I think number two is we've been working, I told you we're really science nerds, and we've been doing a lot of work with epidemiologists and all kinds of folks thinking about what new normal will look like. And we really believe that the magnitude and duration of this crisis has changed our relationship as certainly as Americans, but I think really around the globe. It's changed our relationship with hygiene. I think we recognize that there are simple interventions that we can take that don't require us to wear masks and stand 6 feet apart from each other for the rest of eternity that really can increase our health and well-being. There is nothing easier than quickly sanitizing your hands or, wiping down a high-touch surface. It could only be 10% of your facility that needs to get wiped down constantly, but it could make a huge difference. It could be 99% of the issue. So I think that finding these really simple solutions to enduring problems is one of the silver linings of this tough time. And I don't think we're going to give them up easily. I will tell you, there was another question in the chat around supply chain capacity. And I will tell you, as a third generation privately held company, we have invested 10 years of CapEx. We pulled forward 10 years of CapEx to increase our capacity. We bought a plant just to make Purell surface spray because we believe that these changes are here to stay, and that it's our job to make sure that you're not only ready for the new normal and that we can supply you in the new normal, but that we can surge from the new normal if there's another outbreak. And so, we are all in. I'm not just preaching to the choir. I'm in the choir.
Great.
Well said. Yeah, hey, I would just say that, it's a little different now than 1918, the global travel. So, but as Carrie said, I mean, there is going to be a new normal, a new heightened level of expectation. And, what we hear from our scientists and all the research that we're doing, I mean, look what we've dealt with the last 10 years in terms of, with the swine flu or some of the other, we're going to look at, I don't think that COVID-19, SARS-CoV-19 is the last one that we might be dealing with in our lifetime. So we need to be diligent. We need to stay on top of it. And as Carrie said, whether it's norovirus, whether it's listeria, there's just a lot of challenging, pathogens out there that, we need to be prepared for. And it's our responsibility, I think, as an industry that's such a focal point of, people celebrating, coming together. And when we were young, we'd go out to dinner, on birthdays. Right now, it's just something we do all the time. So the industry will continue to recognize the responsibility we have. And, we're all here, operators, distributors, manufacturers, that legged stool to work together to ensure that we deliver a safe experience, for this nation that loves going out to eat. We really do.
Well said, James. And I think so. We have a lot of questions, but I think we're running out of time. Maybe we can follow up on some of these questions after the session. But yeah, with that, I think we're at the end of this webinar. Thanks everyone for your time, and have a good rest of your day.
All right. Thank you. Thanks everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Likewise. See you.
All right, everyone. So on behalf of DMA and the Food Institute, I'd like to thank our panelists for contributing their viewpoints today and our audience for taking the time out of their schedules to be with us. And just as a reminder, a recording of this webinar will be shared following a short processing period. So keep an eye on your inbox for that link. And with that all said, I'll just say thank you, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.